they're signed and dated on the 26th of February. It was just an oversight in speaking with those. So it's been properly made, the notice of rescission. It's to rescind a resolution in relation to the Commonwealth Home Support Program. So in light of that, and then with questions from councillors just wanting a little bit more background information in relation to this, Sue Mitchell compiled some community services information which was circulated last night. Sue, could you please just talk council through your information from last night, please?
Right, it was just a report on what programs we actually provide, home modifications and maintenance, and a report there on the amounts of funding that we have received since the change to the bringing in the NDIS. We've our funding has decreased, and later on it says there, I think the home modifications was by 43,000, and the community services in the last 3 years has decreased by 20,000. It just says what other projects we provide, which is Meals on Wheels, respite and community transport. I've got figures in there on this year's budget, which is going a lot better than last year's. But I've also noted there that previously, when we were funded by both the federal government and the state government, they had a split of 83%, 17%, which meant 83% for aged clients and 17% for clients with a disability. We've been working with the department over the last few years looking at this because we felt that our amount of the older clients should have been higher than the 83%, because although we lost that funding for people with a disability, I think the funding that we lost was much more than we should have lost. I've also got funding for last year's budget, 18-19 budget, where we had a deficit of 117,000. That meant that we spent 117,000 more than we'd received in grant funding. This year we've tried to reduce the number of services to bring that funding in, as well as trying to get more funding from the Commonwealth Government. And the things that we have reduced have been community transport bus trips. We were running a bus once per week to Griffith, and having centre-based Meals on Wheels, which was respite group each week, were having a meal that was subsidised. They paid the amount that they would pay for a Meals on Wheels, and the rest had been subsidised by council. So we have brought that back, and the budget is looking a lot better. So that, I don't know if anyone has any questions on that report, if everyone has read it.
I've got a...
Councillor Churgwin.
So when they took away the state funding for the NDIS, what was the expectation from the state government that we would get the where we would get the funding from to continue with community transport and Meals on Wheels?
Well, we could apply to do NDIS as well, but it was going to cost quite a lot to be registered for that, and because we felt that we didn't have a lot of clients, disability clients, we kept going. But in saying that, the split that they had given with the 83%, 17%, that's what we've been trying to negotiate with, to say, well, that wasn't really right. We shouldn't have lost that much in funding.
So, Sue, it's Ruth speaking. Is it my understanding is that the aged, if they are on an aged care package, or they they are receiving benefits and assistance in lots of other areas, is there a transport component in their packages?
Yes, there is. And if we're providing then that's just started. Most of our clients that we have aren't on aged care packages, but the ones who are getting charged at full cost recovery. So that's just happening from now on. So that will increase our income as well.
So is there a reason why they are not on aged care packages? Is it because they haven't applied for them, or because they are self-funded retirees and they're not entitled to these sort of benefits, or what's the rationale behind most of them not being on the aged care packages?
I'm not sure. Some have moved to the aged care packages. We don't have a lot of self-funded retirees, and most of them, I don't know whether they're working towards going on the aged care packages or not. I haven't really found out off the coordinators.
My thinking is that if we are significantly down on that revenue, which directly impacts with the transport costs, would it not be in the organisation and the individual's best interests to have them on these aged care packages so that the transport revenue is maximised?
I don't really know, but I know that our coordinators have been working with people to help them to register for the aged care packages. I think mostly it's because they haven't the knowledge probably to apply for them. So that's what we've been trying to do.
Okay. Councillor Churgwin.
Robert Kirby will confirm that when we were bailed up in the street, there were a couple of ladies that were absolutely adamant they were not going on aged care packages. For some reason, they had this view that it was going to disadvantage them in some way. So there is a lot of misinformation about what services we offer, who we offer it to, and how we offer it, and their ability to, I don't know, I just couldn't believe. I had one lady say, I'm not going on an aged care package. I'm not. And I said, you don't have to. You have to apply. The thing was that they seemed to think that when we went through with this and moved what we're doing to another provider, they would be forced to go onto aged care. They would be forced to go onto aged care packages. And I said, that is not right. You have to apply. Nobody can force you. So there's a lack of education amongst some of our senior citizens about everything, pretty much.
Okay, Councillor Curfew.
We need clarity on this topic. There's too much, like Councillor Sherwin said, misinformation. Number one, as a councillor, I don't have enough understanding. I believe this program needs to be workshopped. And like I said, we need clarity so we can take it forward and make the right decision. The information that I was provided with was late last night. I've looked through it, but that still doesn't give me the full understanding of how we maintain our elderly population. So that's one of the reasons why the rescission motion is in place. I think we need more time to work out a strategy and understand this situation to go forward.
Thank you. Councillor Black.
Hello, thank you very much, Councillor McRae. I cannot bring up last night's email because I'm now on this Zoom, but where has the shortfall in revenue been subsidised from? So in other words, what bucket are you getting the money out to from council to what it was last year was 30-odd thousand, maybe more, and this year's already running at $20-odd thousand. Where's that money coming from?
Last year it came out of council funds.
Well, how can you do that? How can you take out of council funds when the authority is you've got to use the money and use the money wisely?
Okay, Councillor Black, please let Sue finish her information. Sue, could you please continue?
Yeah, previous to the changes to the government funding, 1 year we actually had a surplus of, I think, 200,000, which was back in 2013, but that funding was then sent to another organisation, actually to Griffith Post School Options. In other years, we've had a surplus of, I think, 83,000, but in the last 3 years, since these changes have come about, there has been a deficit each year. I think the surplus of 83,000 that we had in 2016 was then used in the next year. But yes, the last 3 years, there's been a deficit. This year, we're hopefully looking at just breaking even with the grant funding.
And secondly, I'd like to join with both Christine and Robert, say more education to the people. So we need to make a leaflet to say who is subsidised, and if you're not subsidised, then you have to pay your share of the of what you get if you're not entitled to it. So I think we need a leaflet sent to all the people who are participating in this program.
Councillor Curfew.
Listening to that is very fair. I think we really need to look at the pensioner needs backwards, more so than having a budget and going forward. We need to rationalise what are the core things that the pensioners need, i.e. what I was told was transport to get to medical appointments, and we really need to rationalise the budget in regard to supporting the key things that they need that they can't go without. So I think we need to work from the pensioner backwards to see where we stand.
Sue, I'd just like to make a comment to round out the conversation. I think Councillor Curfew's idea of having a workshop where we can get, have an opportunity to work through what we are delivering, what it actually costs, what the priorities are for our aged population into the future is really important. So we need to prioritise as council a workshop that can be held as soon as possible regarding that. Secondly, I was really disturbed at the level of misinformation and misinformation that was put out there in the community, painting a very false picture of just what had happened at council and how we were trying to get some rationale around this situation. It was never council's intention to chop this service. It was council's intention to make it sustainable and viable into the future to service the needs of our aged care requirements. So I think any communication into the future needs to be very well thought out, and it needs to be in a simple, engaged format so that the people we are dealing with, our most vulnerable, get the correct information and they are able to process it. It was very distressing and disappointing to hear comments like, well, council's just going to throw us under the bus and they don't care about their aged care, their aged people. That is totally wrong. It was never the intention of council to chop the service. It was the council's intention to bring it to the table, explore it thoroughly, find out where the blowouts are and try and rectify it so that the service we provide for our elderly people is as it should be. So as the mayor and as as a collective of the council here, we absolutely prioritise this issue and we want to get it right. We, however, want to be at the table when any further discussion and information or brochure or media releases or information sheets go to the people. We want to have a look at them first because, after all, we're the people that are wearing it in the public domain. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Councillor McRae. I'm just wondering, we've got a model down your end. Your health supplies come from another direction. Is there any issue down there, and why can't we use that as a parallel model up here?
Councillor Brown, you wouldn't want the model that's delivered down here because it's almost non-existent. So the services that are provided to the northern end of our council are very desirable. We just have to ensure as council that they are sustainable and able to be paid for, and they are the appropriate services. Councillor Wells?
Is there another?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Wells.
Is there another funding stream that may be available for council to assist with this assisted travel throughout the Shire, or are we able to set up within council another management type team to look after the elderly and also the transport that's required by them, because we do live in a very isolated area, and a lot of the majority of people need to travel to Wagga and Albury and thereabouts to get the medical assistance that they're looking for, and that's the reason why this transport cost probably is so expensive.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Councillor Bryce?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just 2 points, and I agree with a lot of the comments that everybody has said. I don't know that sending the motion is what would be the best outcome, as I believe that's what the motion was for, to hash out the right way forward, and I think that's what we wholly intended to do. And the second point I wanted to make is that every single person, I don't know the age, over 60 perhaps, should have an aged care number, a government aged care number, and they can't possibly expect us to fund their programs if they do not have an aged care number, and that's where they have to start. That's all that I had to say. Thank you.
I think the point that Councillor Bryce makes is very sound, and while we have moved forward with a rescission notice, the main premise for moving forward with the rescission motion was to halt the runaway anxiety and misinformation that was being perpetrated in our communities. I still stand by the fact that there was nothing wrong with the original motion. But if this rescission motion gives confidence to the people that we are going to thoroughly workshop and explore our options into the future, then it is beneficial. And I think Councillor Bryce made another added to comments that are already made. There is a lot of education that needs to be worked on to get our community to where they can maximise their opportunities to support them in collaboration with council, not only delivered by council. And that means that they proactively have to get themselves engaged with the system. Now, that we all know what a challenge that is. So in our deliberations going forward, we may actually have to redirect or add to the resource that we have that can enable the people to get on board. But we do have a functioning component in council that works with our aged care people, so there may well already be that resource there. We may not need to increase it, we just may need to broaden their remit to engage with the people to get them up to scratch so that they are out there able to access what they need to access. Councillor Gilbert.
So basically we're going to put you've got a rescind motion in now to rescind that one from back in February, but we're still going to be doing the same thing. So all you're doing is taking it off the books. Now, if we're going to send out a post to a letter drop or something to the elderly to explain to them what we're doing, shouldn't we have done that straight away in February? And like, rescinding the motion is not going to make any difference because we're still looking at the same sort of outcome on how we're going to get it to work. So if there's just some sort of letter that goes out to them to explain, there's no need to rescind the motion because we're not really changing anything. We're just going to workshop it and try and work it so it actually works better.
Well, Councillor Gilbert, my answer to that is, You need to rescind the motion so that it allows us to bring another motion to the table that is more self-explanatory, that doesn't leave room for speculation or misinformation. So
Yeah.
I think it may not be greatly different, but it will give us the opportunity to reassure our aged care population that it's not our intention to chop the ground out from under them. So it may not be vastly different, it will just have some different language attached to it.
Yeah.
Councillor Gilbert.
Fine. Yeah, that's fine to do that if we're going to change the rescind motion to that. But as long as, because just reading the rescind motion that goes to reading the motion that goes to council doesn't really put a good enough explanation. So if we can get something out to the elderly to explain to them what we're doing properly, rather than just reading 3 or 4 lines on a council meeting agenda, well, you're actually getting it out to there to them better to explain.
Yep, I think what we will do, unless there is further comment, is we will move forward and rescind this motion, and then we will also propose a motion to be moved to move forward with what we need to do. So are the councillors comfortable if I put this motion to rescind the motion forward?
Yes.
Just move in a second.
Okay, would somebody like to move, please? Move Councillor Curfew, seconded Councillor Churgwin. I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? I declare that carried.
Would you like to read the motion, please?
I have to read the motion for the record. Resolved on the motion of Councillors Curfew and Churgwin that the following motion passed at the council meeting of the 25th of February 2020 be rescinded by application of Councillors Churgwin, Brown and Curfew, with the notion of rescission having been made in accordance with Council's Code of Meeting Practice and provided to Council's General Manager on the 27th of March 2020.
Say the resolution that's been rescinded now.
The resolution has now been rescinded.
No, read the resolution.
Oh, sorry. On the motion of that one, Councillors Bryce and Smith.
Yes.
Resolved on the motion of Councillors Bryce and Smith that the Council endeavour to transition the Commonwealth Home Support Program to a suitable provider. Should same not be found, Council to continue with the provision of service.
That's the notice that's been rescinded.
That's the notice that's been rescinded. Are you happy with that? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think now, with John's guidance, we propose a new motion.
I think council has put some points forward of what you're looking towards, and I think with the information provided by Sue, that an area needs to be the identified area that where potentially loss of funds is through the community transport expenditure. So I think we need to get a greater grasp by doing an audit on the community transport section, finding out things like who is utilising it, what they're utilising it for, sort of as Councillor Curfew said, the bottom-up approach to find out what all of those things are. Following on from what Councillor McRae has got, do those have those individuals who are using it have other alternatives that may be able to take away? Do all of the individuals have a desire where they could pay a little bit more for the process? We use volunteer drivers in their cars. Is that where the money is getting chewed up in paying for mileage on those vehicles? Would another way be to actually have a dedicated vehicle, a car that is, other than a bus? Would that save money and all of those sort of things? And with that sort of body of work, that we'd be able to come back and make those, you'd be able to have an informed decision on that. But I'd only be saying that the audit would be just functioned on the community transport, because the other is pretty close. It's not over big numbers when you see the size of the numbers, but when you have a 32% overage on $135,000, it's a significant number. Yep. At the end of the day. So that's what I'd be proposing. If council wish to motion that, or motion that an audit be undertaken of the community transport and delivered back, then that's perfect.
What's the feeling of the councillors? Do you want to propose a motion? that an audit be undertaken to look at the community transport aspect of this service. That can be undertaken internally, John?
Yes.
Yes, that can be undertaken internally. So is it the feeling, Councillor?
There was Councillor Black
Councillor Black?
I move
and
it.
Councillor Smith. Yeah.
Moved Councillor Black.
No, I want to talk.
Okay.
Well, we'll deal with this proposal to start with. That a motion moved by Councillor Black and seconded by another councillor, please. Councillor Brown, that an audit be undertaken on the community transport aspect of the Commonwealth Home Support Program. So I put that motions, moved Councillor Black, seconded Councillor Brown. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Two against, one. Could you put your hands up again? Those in favour?
Are we able to speak for and against this motion or not?
Oh, you can. Sorry, Councillor Wells, you would like to speak?
I think the motion needs to be a little bit stronger than that. To undertake an audit, that's quite good and well. But we also need, with that audit, we need to be able to investigate other means of funding or other means within council of providing that. Now, there are other shires and councils around this area that would be in the same have the same issues that this council has. We need to be able to investigate various ways to provide this service within the community. So that needs to be included in the audit. And if we just call it an audit, I don't believe that will encapsulate what we're looking for.
All right, Councillor Wells, right. So if we take it that the first part of the motion is that we undertake an audit to look at the community transport component of this support program, you would also like added to that motion that and council investigates
investigate options of continuing this service.
Financial. Well, should it read and council investigate financial opportunities allowing us to continue this service? Because it's the finances that will dictate how this service is provided into the future. Are you happy with that, Councillor Wells?
Yes, I believe that would capture everything that we're looking for at the present time.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
I was just going to support what Phil was saying, Councillor Wells was saying, and the review of the implications on all community funding since the advent of the NDIS. We know that the NDIS has had significant cost increase implications for all streams of community service, and that should be part of the review process, how that has impacted the cost to both providers and utilisers. Pardon me. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Curfew.
Yeah, can I just add to what Gayla was saying in regards to the NDIS? As a councillor, I need to have a full understanding of what these proposals are in regards to what the government is trying to do for the elderly in that package, is the way it is, and what we're doing with our package, because there's got to be a best case scenario for us to give to our pensioners, and without looking on the other side of the fence and trying to get the best result possible, we're not opening up enough information to make the best result. So I really would like that added some way to the resolution so we get an understanding, so there's no misinformation, and then we can make the best decision possible for our elderly community members.
Okay, so perhaps what we could add to this motion also is that council has prioritised, that council prioritises a workshop addressing this specific order of business as soon as is allowable, as soon as it can be facilitated.
Yep, I'm happy.
You're happy with that? Okay. If I read this, will everybody just listen carefully, and if there's anything else to be added, please put your hand up. Resolved on the motion of Councillors Black and Brown that an audit be undertaken of the community transport service provided as part of the Commonwealth Home Support Program, and Council investigate financial opportunities for continuing this program. Council prioritises a workshop addressing the specific order of business as soon as possible. Is there anything else you need added? No? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please say aye.
Raise your hand.
Raise your hand, sorry. Raise your glass, raise your hand. Okay, those against? Raise your hand. I declare that carried. We need to do anything else, then?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you very much for your engaged in conversation around that. We'll move on to item number 1, the mayoral report. As I alluded to in this mayoral report, life has changed dramatically in the last 6 weeks. It's very challenging in this environment to meet as regularly as we need to meet and to engage with the networks that support us as a council. So we're doing our level best. We are working hard to make things accessible for people, but it is an ongoing challenge. I think, as far as I can tell, and the General Manager keeps me well informed, our staff are working as best they can in these challenging circumstances. I think as communities as a whole, we have all stepped up remarkably well to work within the lockdown situation we are in to ensure that our communities are kept as safe as possible. I'm sure there will be great lessons to be learned from this, and hopefully, if we continue to move forward as well as we have, what we are able to manage will be manageable into the foreseeable future. We've had lots of local government and Murrumbidgee Local Health District webinars and information sessions. Some of them are challenging. I have to congratulate on the councillors' meeting etiquette and attention to detail here, because some of the teleconferences I've been on, meeting etiquette has just gone straight out the window, and it's a very challenging environment to try and listen and learn from. We've had human resource webinars. We've had, lots of different things come to us that are trying to help us work through this very challenging time. And the General Manager will speak to to more of the local government issues. I had a teleconference with the Kidman Promotional Committee. Also, there needs to be a workshop facilitated there just to garner the exact commitment that the councils engaged have, because it needs to have a much more futuristic and funded, resourced approach to how they're going about it. They're looking at their model constitution and how they best move forward. So that's a work in progress. And that's about all. The Ramjo Water Committee have their water position paper just about to be released. That is a challenge in itself. It's very difficult to bring people to the table that bring a regional focus as opposed to a self-interest focus. So herding all of those people to come to consensus is a real challenge, but it's a very good piece of work. It's had a huge investment of time and intellect into it, and it should be a paper that positions us well into the future. The Sustainable Diversion Lemon Project community consultation is on hold due to the pandemic. The disturbing news that came out of there today is that the chair of that committee, David Leslie, has resigned, which is very disappointing because he was actually a shining light and a decent human being, and that's going to be very difficult to replace. So it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I have in front of me the latest round of Stronger Country Communities Round 3 projects that have had funding allocated to them. And I'll read them to you. The Colliambley Sports Precinct supply of equipment and upgrades, 167,000. And this includes upgrades and additions to the youth hall, relocate and rehabilitate the cricket nets and pitches, timing equipment, shade marquees and reels for the swimming club, and mirrors for the physical culture club. The Darlington Point Public School P&C student facilities upgrade, that was inclusive of installing an electronic notice board, installation of shade sails, provision of industrial fans in the Kohler, and remove and replace bubblers. The provision of a splash park at Darlington Point, the provision of a pump track skate park at Jerilderie, the rehabilitation of the Jerilderie Lake banks, and replace the lighting towers and upgrade of lighting at Monash Park. And Murrumbidgee's Local Community Champions Youth Project, which we had a presentation at Council about that. That got across the line. And 2 further projects have been provided funding under this round, including the Candy Inabara redevelopment and the Jerilderie Community Gym, which were individual applications. So in total, that came to a lot of money. I'll just add it up. But you know, that was a pretty generous allocation from round 3 of the Stronger Country Communities money. And yeah, to date, that's all the information I have. Is there any questions from my mayoral report? No? Somebody like to move? Councillor Gilbert, sorry.
Talking about the grant money that comes through. Now, the splash park, someone come and see me yesterday and said that they were told by council that the splash park was going into Lions Park over outside the river. Now, we never agreed on that. We always said that we wanted that to be in the swimming pool area, not in the Lions Park. We didn't want to take anything away from that swimming pool. What's going on there?
Vicky, would you please like to comment?
We did have those discussions, councillors. It was just a roundtable discussion of where that would be best placed. It's not set in concrete yet.
So Vicky, will there be community consultation as to where that will be placed?
Yes, that can certainly happen. These projects are actually 3-year projects, so we certainly have that time to fit that community consultation in and make submissions for the application. Asks you in the start when we put the application in where that's going to be placed, but certainly there's an avenue to vary that if that's the thought of the community.
Councillor Curfew?
Yeah, I can give you a hint. It's going to be at the swimming pool. That's how the place is going to go.
Well, I think, Councillor Curfew, there will be contributing circumstances which will dictate where the splash park actually goes. I notice here, Vicky, that the funding amount is $316,000. Is that the full allocation of what the project's going to cost?
Yes. No, that wasn't. That was it was a little less than we'd made an application for in the beginning.
Yep.
Certainly, we'd made application for some other projects. We didn't take into account the 2 other projects that were applied for individually. So that particular project is a project that was just a balancing amount from the funds that were still available to be granted within the local government area.
I'm sorry, does that mean it's fully funded or we're going to have to get money from somewhere else?
No. Well, look, in the beginning they were estimates, so we've not done a full and detailed costing scope at this stage, so I can't answer that as yet.
Depends on the components you want to put in the park.
Okay. So the General Manager just informed me that that will depend on the scope of the project and the components that will be involved in the project build. So would that be accurate?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Councillor Smith?
It's all right. I'm just sitting here waving my hand at the moment.
Yeah. Is there a reason why you're waving your hand?
Frustration, Madam Mayor. Frustration.
Okay. Well, we'll move on then.
Excuse me.
So yes.
Can I have a word,
I'm sorry,
please?
Bill. I can't actually see everybody. Councillor Wells?
Yeah, I'd like to confer with my other two local councillors that surely we as local councillors should be involved in this particular project at some stage. I mean, we haven't even seen a design or anything as yet, and the initial concept was to enhance the local park, the local swimming pool that we've got at the present time, whereby families can take their children to that particular facility, and some kids can have a swim while the other kids can play in the splash park. You can't have two separate venues. How are the families going to split their kids between two venues? But I do believe that the local councillors need to be involved in earlier in the detailed design of this, prior to it getting to a stage where we try to take something out or add to it. We need to be involved in it from the start of it. We haven't been as yet.
Councillor Wells, I think you might have, if we take back what Vicky has actually, the information she has provided to us, there is a 3-year time frame on these projects, and the projects were identified, but there are no detailed concept plans or positioning plans at the table at this stage. And I'm absolutely sure that the local councillors will be involved in that consultation. And I think it's a really good move to have that level of engagement because they can help drive it. Councillor Gilbert.
Yeah, that's good and well to say that there's no actual location that's been decided, but when we've got community members here that have come and said, look, why is the splash park going in this area? Now, if council's going back and going to these community people and saying that's where it's going, it sort of makes it hard for us. When we as councillors hadn't heard about it until they actually come and seen us and said this is where it's going. Well, that's not where we ever said we wanted to go.
And I take your point absolutely, Councillor Gilbert, and any further movement on these processes need to have the local councillor engagement right from here on in. And Correct. It is disappointing that the local community have been engaged and informed, I don't know with what level of information, and the local councillors have not been engaged in that process because it makes us look uninformed and stupid. So I would hope, it is my hope, that from here on in, any dialogue, any planning, any further concept drawings or whatever is engaged with the 3 local councillors involved, and no decisions are made and no more community information is put out there until the councillors know what's going on. And that should be the process by which we move forward for any of these projects into the future, because I firmly believe that all the local projects should have the local champions, being the local councillors, engaged so that they can promote and be that conduit between operational staff and the community. Councillor Bryce.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I didn't hear what the last project was that you announced. That was all.
The Takandi Inabara project and the Jerilderie Community Gym project, which they both made separate applications aside from council to the Stronger Country Communities Fund Round 3 themselves.
Thank you.
It doesn't state what the scope of those projects is. It just says the names of the people that submitted the applications. Okay. Right. Thank you very much. Moved on the motion of somebody like to move, please? My report. Moved Councillor Bryce, seconded Councillor Churgwin. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Delegates' reports? No delegates' reports. Okay. We will move on to the General Manager's monthly report. Item number 2, please, John.
Thank you, Councillor McRae. Just everybody's had time to read. I won't touch on many things except for the COVID-19 and the Local Government Splinter Interim Award 2020. It's just got some body behind it. Mainly, it was driven by some coastal councils that were running different enterprises that were asked to shut down as part of the social distancing, like campgrounds, cafes, water parks, theme park, whatever you want to say, zoos, and a like that. So that's where it was mainly driven by, because a lot of their staff had been stood down because of they didn't have those facilities opened anymore. So that's the basis of it. So one of the strongest points within there, that it can only be enacted providing the government has forced the closure of a particular enterprise or entity. So most nearly everything that council does, except for the library, is still operating and not eligible underneath this award. So the library is the only thing that is eligible, because it's the only thing that has been specifically identified that we operate to close down. So we became a party to this award just simply because it doesn't matter. We don't have to use it. We can use it. It's got those provisions. And we did not understand what may be shut down into the future, or what they declare to be the super essential or even critical, and all the other essential things shut down. So we only signed up for the award for that. So in a nutshell, there's nothing except for the library at the moment that we could use this for. We are finding useful work for those 2 staff members as it is. So providing we can provide them with some useful work, then we can't access the provisions of the Splinter Award. That's probably one of the biggest things that have come out in the last month. Is there any specific questions on the Splinter Award?
Are there any questions, councillors?
No.
No.
Okay.
Move on. Next one.
Thank you. As we've had other correspondence 2 weeks ago, just briefly outlining some of the projects and things that are happening. Collyamby Sports Precinct's been advertised. They'll be back here to council at the June council meeting for a decision. In the same vein, the other things that we're working on is the Barolga Place. We hope to have that tender document presented to council at the May meeting for authority to go to tender to be able to do the Barolga Place work. That will be a design and construct because we've had so many different iterations and different things coming forward, and a lot of input from a lot of the businesses and the chamber in particular of particular ways to go. So we're putting it out to the market to come back with some pricing on some of the basic ideas that we've got there, and we'll move forward in relation to that. Only just when I walked in did I have the new design for the Young Street subdivision. When I say new design, it was just replacing those 5 lots facing east-west, or facing east, I should say, into the 2 north-south ones, and from that we'll be able to start commencing the work for the construction design. So I only received that like 3 minutes before walking into here, so I haven't even opened it up myself. The organisational structure review has indicated that we've put it on hold until January, but still things are still happening in the background. Comments are still being received. Tweaks to the structure are still going on. So it's still a time for councillors as well as staff and managers. I've said any more input into this structure, please keep on sending it through because nothing has been set in concrete, and it'll be a good time over the next couple of months to try and affirm something. I hope to have something to council in the next month or two where offline for comment of further iterations of it, and we'll move forward in relation to that. At the February workshop, there was a request that where would we want to be in 20 years or whatever it is, and there was a request that we reduce the ward councillors from 3 to 2. Unfortunately, the easy way to do that through section 224A, just seeking approval to reduce, we can't do that because we can't reduce a ward from anything lower than 3 members. So to do it properly, if council wanted to go forward, and I'd still need to get advice whether the minister would accept that, is a reduction of numbers via a constitutional referendum using clause 6 of the local government award. I don't know if you wish me to continue to pursue that. I just thought I'd give you that bit of background because I didn't originally bring it forth after February, because once you read the first line of section 224A, it states that you can't do anything within 12 months of the election. That was well and truly within 12 months of the election. And when they pushed the election back 12 months, it opened up that window. But then when you read the further clauses down, it closes the window pretty quickly for what we've got. But we'd have the ability through section 16, but to do that, that's a constitutional referendum. It's something you'd probably normally run at a council election time to save on costs rather than trying to run it separately. So that can be open for further discussion. If any councillors have got any strong desire on that, then please send me an email, or if we say don't worry about it, then I won't pursue any further of that work. The other thing that I've got, and which forms a resolution, is the Jerilderie raw water restrictions. Mainly looked at these raw water restrictions in the beginning to because of daylight saving and things like that, to try and change the water. The weather's getting a bit cooler. Traditionally, we don't use as much water in May and June, but still, as we're tracking, we're still going to use 520 megalitres of our 500 megalitre allocation in Jerilderie. So we're looking into other ways of trying to reduce that and try and save that 20 megs between now and the end of June, which is a tall order considering May we only traditionally use 19 and June we traditionally use 13.5 megs. So it's pretty hard to pull back 20 megs out of 41 or 31 megs. Sorry. So we've just proposed some new watering restrictions, and then we need to look at other avenues moving forward based on the amount of water per person that's being used within the Jerilderie Township area. Predominantly, it's from the raw water where the most use is. So I've just sort of recommended, and the reason forward coming through to council for this resolution is just in case we need to enforce. We've got the resolution on council to be able to enforce the residents to adhere to these numbers. So residential properties, watering time 7 a.m. to 11 a.m, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. daily, use of automated systems or hoses with timers, or handheld hoses only. And then commercial council properties, watering times for lawn or garden 11 to 7, use of automated systems for lawn or gardens 7 to 9, handheld hoses with timers, etc. only. That is the recommendation of for today. Any questions?
Any questions of the General Manager's report, please? Councillor Curfew.
Point Young Street subdivision. Here, once the plan is returned to John, will commence the construction design work. Can I interject there and say, can that plan be sent to councillors for a final review to make sure that we're satisfied?
For sure. That last one. Yep.
Thank you.
Send it through.
Any further questions, please, or comments? Councillor Smith.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor Curfew, finished? I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
No, the only other comment I needed to make is to ensure that the Brits Road and the intersection to join Young Street is part of the decision process.
The resolution, the last resolution of council.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is in the last resolution of council.
So the plan that I will receive, they'll be sent to me, will incorporate that as a holistic so we can sign off on it.
No, we haven't done that yet. I was only just doing the layout of the subdivision. Haven't done any of the road network that would come with the detailed design of the construction to be able to do it.
Is there a time frame when we can expect that would be done?
I don't know. We've got to get into the experts that know how to do these designs and find out what their time frame is. I haven't done that yet because I haven't had a concept plan to give them to be able to do that.
Are you satisfied with that, Councillor Curfew? Yes?
Yeah, one thing at a time, I understand.
Yep, good-o. Councillor Smith.
I was just wanting to ask about the use of sprinklers attached to hoses in these watering restrictions. Is that still okay, and is that clear in these restrictions?
The sprinklers or hoses which would be attached to a hose, providing they've got a timer on their faucet, on their tap, and the timer that can't be set greater than 120 minutes. And I just did some research, and most of the timers that you can buy at Bunnings or whatever, only has a 120-minute dial on it anyway. And that's why I just said that. There might be some others and the odd ones or the professional ones, but there was just that 120-minute timer. So that's what it meant with hoses.
So it's hoses, either handheld watering or use of sprinklers attached to timers.
Yep.
Can we make sure that that's clear, please?
Yeah.
Councillor, any further comment? Any questions regarding the other resources under the General Manager's domain? I note here that all recruitment has been suspended.
Yes.
And it says here, unless an accountant, a whiz-bang accountant thoroughly appears, just appears, which is too good an offer to refuse. Yep. Can somebody tell me, please, where the applications for this accountant are up to, and if we've actually had anybody apply for the job? Can anybody answer that?
You want to answer that, Vicky?
I can. We had in excess of 23 applications for the position. 7 of those applications were from international persons, and the others are varying from secretaries to creditors' clerks. At this stage, I'm still going through those, but it's very difficult in the current COVID climate to say I can put you on because I can't be with them, side by side to tell them how the work's going to operate. So at this stage, we've just put that on hold until our social distancing and other laws can enable us to go somewhere. There's only a few that are possible.
In this HR process, Vicky, the ones that are secretaries, you just automatically discount them? Like because the ad did state they had to be suitably qualified.
Correct. Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, we live in hope. Okay.
Difficult.
Is there any other conversation around this report, HR? I note that our membership to Thrive Riverina has been paid, so that's good. I don't have any other anything to add to that rather than the Kidman Way work we've been doing? The media and communications work here, I would just like to make a comment that I think when we move forward with this, engaging with our aged care people in our community, I think it really needs to be a whole of organisation approach to how we go about doing this, and we need to be very mindful that they are vulnerable and they need us to walk them through it. We can't assume everybody's going to get on board, get the information. So I think that needs to be not only an organisational approach, it needs to engage with our councillors so we can help walk them through it. Now, I know that's blurring the line between operational and representational, but I think this is a classic example of how we can actually help here. So I'd just like to make that point. Any further questions? Councillor Bryce. Oh, there you are. Yep.
I had two questions. One was to do with the whether anybody up the northern end knew that whether the Colliambly Observer was still going to be printed or not. If not, I think that could be a major problem for any of our information getting out to people up that way. I'm fairly certain that the Southern Riverina News is still under print, but the smaller weekly newspapers, I think, are a bit vulnerable. The other point I wanted to ask about was the recruitment. We did have interviews for other positions where before COVID-19 hit, and I'd just like those people that were interviewed, hopefully they've been notified of where their jobs are up to. Thank you. That's all.
And yes, in second question first, yes, everybody has been notified. We even had some of the applicants state that under the current circumstances they don't want to leave their current employer whilst this COVID is on. So we actually had some that sort of unofficially pulled out, but are still there for when the COVID restrictions and everything, and we can start employing or doing going again with employing. So we probably lost a couple that were good applicants because of that rationale. So everybody's been notified. Yeah, we spoke about the Griffith papers not going to print anymore, and the only thing that we've got really covering that area now is the Wagga paper. Underneath the directives that have gone forth, we have other methods to be able to issue our notices and everything else like that, but there's still going to be a gap that we have to cover. So there'll be other methods. We're looking to increase the newsletter from to come out more often and things like that to try and close that gap. And where we have to do letter drops, we've been doing letter drops.
Yeah, okay. Historically, small newspaper ceases production. They're very difficult to get back started again. So it'll be something that you will have to keep an eye on up that way.
Yep.
Yep. Any further questions, please?
I don't have a question, but Madam Mayor, I'd just like to excuse myself unless I'm needed for any other items. Sue?
I think so. No.
No, Sue, that's fine. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you.
Okay. Somebody, if there's no further questions, somebody like to move? Councillor Gilbert, seconded Councillor Brown. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Raise your hand. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item 3, please, John.
So yeah, the model code of conduct, and yeah, the model went out. We had in the original one that went forward to the workshop. We were looking at the 15 days notice for notices to come forth. In conversation, it was 3, so we put 3 into to the piece of paper, to the code that went out for consultation. Some of the consultation, the only rationale that I'm saying to have it was 5 days is the close of agenda. There's nothing that stops from other things coming forward. There's nothing to stop calling another meeting. There's nothing to stop immediately calling a meeting for an emergency. There's lots of different other ways if something is truly has to be dealt with. But I was just the only reason why I recommended that it be 5 days change is that's when the agenda closes on the Monday before the council meeting, the Monday week before the council meeting. Just to get it into that. That was just to keep it in line with those things. But council's decision at the end of the day whether they adopt their policy as read, which is the 3 days, or we make that change to 5 days.
Comment, please, councillors. Councillor Smith.
I'd just like to reinforce my support of retaining the 3 days, the 3 business days prior to the council meeting, for being able to notify any late business.
That's understood, isn't it?
Yeah. So if you're going to take out where I've got it 5 instead of 3, which is 3.9,
yep,
you just pass the code as presented.
Yeah, this recommendation here.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further comment?
Without the thing.
Councillor Wells.
I believe that 5 business days would be more appropriate. It allows the staff to develop a comprehensive business paper for the councillors.
Okay. Anybody else speak for? Anybody speaking against? Councillor Churgwin?
I agree with Phil on this one. I think given that we've got other mechanisms, if there's something completely urgent comes up, I think the 5 days is appropriate so that, as Phil said, we can have it properly in the agenda.
Any further comment? If not, would somebody like to move the recommendation as is?
Yeah, the one as is. The 5
one
days.
as is, yeah. Somebody like to move? Move Councillor Wells, seconded Councillor Churgwin. I'll put the recommendation. Do I need to read it first?
I'd read it, yes.
Okay. The recommendation states the Murrumbidgee Council Draft Model Code of Meeting Practice as presented to today's meeting be adopted by Council with the amendment to clause 3.9 to read. A councillor give notice of any business they wish to be considered by the Council at its next ordinary meeting by way of a notice of motion. To be included on the agenda of the meeting, the notice of motion must be in writing and must be submitted 5 business days before the meeting to be held. I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please say aye. And not say aye, raise your hand. Right, those against? I declare it carried. Okay. To item 4, please.
I think I'd pass over to Vicky.
Vicky.
Thank you, councillors. I guess it's there in front of you, but I will take any questions. There's minimal changes, bearing in mind that I understand the difficulties, so I'll take any questions.
Okay, councillors, questions of Vicky, please, regarding this report. Councillor Bryce.
Thank you. Vicky, I just noticed that the major changes are through the increase of plant funds, so that's where you source the additional funds in the budget. With the COVID-19, some of our policies where we're now not going to in major new plant in the foreseeable future, what sort of impact does that have on the budget in the future?
Look, that's a bit hard to determine. The plant changes, if you're aware, council had already accepted tenders on and major amounts of plant, the timing of those is sometimes months, especially for trucks and so forth. So those plant items that you've already accepted tenders for, orders have been placed with those people, so they'll continue to come through. The order's already been done. In the future, who could say? I can't sort of answer that at the present time. We've only varied the budget by those items of plant that carried over from the previous year. So generally what we do, anything that's not fully expended in each financial year, we transfer those amounts into the plant replacement fund. So a significant amount of those have already been, like the ones that we hadn't purchased at the end of last financial year, have now been purchased. So that's the significant change there. How many of the ones we've already ordered will finish before the end of June? Quite possibly there'll be 2 trucks, without intimate knowledge, possibly 2 trucks that won't fit in that agreement. But really into the future, it's a bit hard to say. It depends how long this lasts. I'm sitting down preparing a budget, assuming normal workings, but sorry, I really can't give any indication at this stage.
Thank you.
Councillor Curfew.
Vicky, has all the trades been done for the plant and equipment?
All of them? Sorry?
Has all the trades been done yet? All the trade-ins for the vehicles on the new plant?
No, not all of them. As I mentioned, there's a few that still haven't happened yet. There's certainly a couple of the trucks, the tipping trailers, by the time they actually get the trucks into the country sometimes, and manufacture the tipping bodies.
I'm talking about the trade for the old trade-in plant that we have that we're trading. Were those prices already set, or are they market prices at the sale?
No, they were the tendered prices for those. So
that's all okay.
Yep.
No worries. Thank you.
Any further questions of Vicky? If not, somebody like to move the recommendation, please. Move Councillor Curfew, seconded Councillor Black, that the quarterly budget review report be noted and the variances to the budgets as outlined in the attachment be approved. Okay, I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 5, please.
Vicky.
Councillors, we've received some written correspondence from the Hilltop Accommodation Centre and the Fight Cancer Organisation. The second stage of the residential care centre at Albury is currently undergoing construction. In fact, nearing completion, I would suggest. They have not been fully funded for that extension at this stage. So they're looking for contributions from the area, and bearing in mind that it is a regional cancer clinic, so people outside that Albury-Wodonga area that actually use that facility. I have put no actual recommendation. I guess I will be guided by you as to whether council wishes to go ahead with that. Councillor Galashan from Albury City Council is actually on the Hilltop Centre, and she's sort of running that, looking for those donations and so forth. But she is willing and able to make a presentation to councillors or interested members of the community on the centre if anyone wanted to take that up. I have noted there how many bed nights the people from the community have actually used the current facility. So.
Comment, please. Councillor Wells.
Just a question, Vicky. With it states that there are 10 accommodation units. Would council have any idea on what it would cost to furbish one of those accommodation units?
I believe that's in the attachment. There was they gave us some ideas. We could $1,800 would put some artworks on the walls. $9,000 would furbish a kitchen area. There were various items within that report that they gave some amounts for, I thought. So I didn't attach that. In the attachments, Councillor Wells, it does sort of show some ideas. Fully furnish a lounge or a library, $9,500. Fully furnish an accommodation suite is $6,800. So they've given some information there.
At the present time, would we have any avenue, or do we have any unallocated money of around about the $10,000 mark that could be provided for a unit like this?
Well, at the present time, you could consider the community grant, although the community grant, if you wanted to send it over there, in the assumption that the community would use it. The other possibility is to include that in the current budget recommendations. The advice that we've received is that the shortfall of funding has been provided by a bridging loan. So that was the opportunity that if we wish to make a contribution, we could put that over a number of years if we so wished, as there's been a bridging loan that we'll organise that will actually cover that shortfall in construction costs.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. My curiosity asked me, is this the only service we can tap into, or is there other services like in Wagga?
I think there are.
I believe it's one of the only ones in the local region. The accommodation centre, which sits next to the cancer centre itself.
Cancer, yeah.
It is a purpose-built cancer facility in Albury, and the accommodation is co-located for that specific purpose. Councillor Brown. My only concern is, Councillor Wells, if you expended the full community grant thing, given the unknown we're moving into regarding our economic status, the small businesses and industry and things like that normally come to the party and make money available for the community, there's every likelihood that won't be available in the foreseeable future, in the near future. So while I think it would be prudent and desirable for council to make a donation, I would be very loath to give our full community grant allocation to this one project. Councillor Smith.
Oh, sorry, I was leaning on my hand. I'd just like to say that the first round of accommodation that specifically Jerilderie community supported was for accommodation for those that had to travel for whatever medical or surgical services that were needed and required accommodation. This second round of accommodation is specifically built for cancer treatment, as they have significantly increased the decentralised cancer facility that is being built in Albury. If we are able perhaps to consider ongoing consideration over 2 or 3 years towards furnishings of the accommodation as it is completed. That may be a consideration. I think the very fact that they're trying to decentralise the cancer treatment and make it more accessible at a much higher level in a regional focus certainly merits supporting the accommodation. It's just disappointing to note the limited numbers of rooms that is going to be provided, that's all.
Councillor Bryce.
Thank you. I have actually been inside the first Hilltop Accommodation Centre. My family used that Hilltop Accommodation Centre, primarily cancer patient family, and the actual patients are able to use the rooms as a first priority. If there are other rooms left, travelling people that use the base hospital can avail themselves to those rooms. This next section, I presume, is another section exactly the same as the first lot. Jerilderie Council and community contributed to refurbish one whole room of the first section. It is called the Jerilderie room. I wouldn't expect at the moment that Murrumbidgee Council would be able to fulfil a whole room and have a whole room dedicated to our council. It would exceed, I would imagine, $30,000–$40,000.
Yep.
I would like to think that we'd make a small donation, and perhaps all other community organisations have been given the same available opportunity to do that, and it could amount to some, but certainly not a whole room worth, I wouldn't think.
Councillor Cherwin.
I'd like to see us donate something too. I'm more along the lines, I think, of Gayla's point of view. I also had availed myself of Hilltop you've got no idea the relief it is to have something like that that's available at short notice when you're in a time of great stress. So I just think it would be terrific if we could at least give them maybe something over every year for, say, 3 years to give them some sort of certainty.
Well, does anybody have any thoughts about how much?
400.
I was thinking that why do we not, given that we are 3 communities in our council footprint, why don't we give $1,000 from each community, which is $3,000 for 3 years? And that would take us to a credible donation, and we don't have to outlay all of the money at the one time, but it is a significant contribution and recognition from each community. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree.
I think it's very generous.
Yep. Unfortunately for all of us, and even looking at the people here today, none of us have not been touched by this issue, and I think there's real merit in developing this centre of accessibility and renown. So I think that if we do recognise that we will, as communities, we will use it. So if there's no further ideas on monetary contribution or whatever, I would just put to you, could you please raise your hand if you think that $3,000 for 3 years would be a credible donation? Okay. So do we need a motion? Okay. Okay. So I'll put read this motion to you. Somebody like to move? Move Councillor Gilbert, seconded Councillor Smith, that a donation of $3,000 for 3 years be made to Hilltop Accommodation Centre Stage 2 development. I'll put that to you. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against, carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 6, please. Who speaks here?
Vicky.
Council, I have put to a specific COVID-19 hardship policy rather than try and vary the current one, make this specific for the current pandemic. I hope you've had the opportunity to have a read, and yes, I'll take your thoughts and work from there.
Okay. Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, I've read the document and I would recommend Council adopt the recommendation that we've been presented with. So option 1, I'd like to move.
Okay. Any further comment, please? Okay, there being no further comment, the recommendation has been moved by Councillor Brown. Would somebody like to second that? Councillor Smith, and I'll read the recommendation that Council adopt the draft COVID-19 financial hardship policy and endorse a retrospective waiving of interest charges on outstanding rates and charges from the 1st of April 2020. I'll put that recommendation. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item 7, please.
Stephen, on the line.
Yes, I'm on the line. Thank you, councillors, and good afternoon. This is just to give you an update on where I'm at with the plans of management and with regard to the last report to council in February this year regarding the initial categorisation of the land. So what you have in the attachments there is the draft plan of management for Elliott Park. What I am seeking from council is just endorsement to proceed to the next stage, which is public exhibition. I suggest that we just hold off on assuming that you go along with the recommendation, just hold off on the getting it to exhibition until we get the final categorisation and acceptance from Crown Lands. At this point in time, they've just advised that we're still in the queue, but I'm sort of starting to pester Crown there just to find out where we're at. So essentially the plan of management it's in a format which follows the guidelines provided by Crown Lands, and it talks about in many ways just the general maintenance issues and the general management of the Crown Land. On page 11 of the attachment, you'll find an aerial photo there which splits the category of the park into two categories, one being a park, that being the blue colour, and the general community use being that purple colour. The purple section is the critical change because that's to facilitate the childcare centre, which council approved a couple of months ago. And look, just as we speak, I've just got an email from Crown Land just saying it's still in the queue, so no further information there. So again, with that general community use, again, the primary purpose of that was to facilitate the childcare centre, but this also allows for other community uses to go on that land, whether it's using the childcare facility building. Now, obviously, that's subject to any lease agreement and things like that. but it gives scope that if other projects may arise in the future, council doesn't have to go through the process of changing the plan of management. We've already identified land there which can be adopted for that. That's basically it. If any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Smith.
Steve, you note that if they do not endorse the general community classification, then we won't be able to go ahead. Are you getting any feeling that that may not be supported or endorsed?
No feeling at this stage. The department have said that look, if they don't go through that change to the general community use, we go through the plan of management process anyway. The key difference is how it is done. So if Crown come back to us and saying, yes, look, we're happy with the general community use, we just go to public exhibition. If they're not happy with that, we just go through an extra step, which is called a public hearing. So you still go through the public exhibition process, but you also have a public hearing, and like I said, there's different sort of advertising requirements for that, and it gives the local communities the opportunity to speak rather than just make a submission. So it really just puts an extra step. But to answer your question, no feedback one way or the other about whether or not they're going to accept it or not accept it. Certainly the idea of the split categorisation was discussed briefly with the department. That initial categorisation of land was provided to the Crown, and they didn't raise any issue with it at that point in time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Any further questions?
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I think we should endorse a recommendation, because if this happens to be cleared before our next meeting in a month's time, then we're actually, we need to push this as quick as we can. There's kids and parents looking forward to this new facility, and we've got the money in the bank. We've deferred it once, so I'd like to see things move. So if we gave this recommendation the okay today, and it gets cleared by Crown Land before the next meeting, we can actually go on public exhibition.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown. Any further comments?
Yeah, I'd like to concur with that. I think that it's we've been waiting too long for this. It's dragging out and dragging out. And Steve, I congratulate you on your report. It's very easy to read. A lot of information in there that flows from one section to the other, and very easy to read. But you might have to take your swag and camp out at Crown Lands and get this moving.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Yeah, look, I want to push them along, but I'm of the view sometimes, like I said, if you push them too hard, they'll dig their heels in. But like I said, I've built up a quite a good relationship with the Crown there, and they have been certainly very helpful there. So certainly what I'll do once the minutes of this meeting are adopted, I will contact the Crown, and I'll get their view and just saying, well, look, what we want to do is, what council would like to do is get it out to exhibition. And if they come back and saying, well, look, the only way to do that is to go through the public hearing process, well, look, we still might pick up time there. Like I said, so I do appreciate that the process, particularly with the childcare centre, has dragged on, and the community wants it and wants to get it done. So, like I said, I'll do my best to get this up and running.
Thank you.
Just while we're on that, before I move to Councillor Curfew, Steve, can I just make one comment? And I know this appears pedantic, but can we please refer to that project as the Jerilderie Preschool and Long Day Care Centre, not a childcare centre?
Oh, absolutely.
It has a It has a multi-focused approach, and I think that was part of its saleability and community capacity building. So I just if we could refer from here on in to its full title of preschool and long day care facility, that would be good. Thank you. Councillor Curfew.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic report. That was well done. Questions in regard to the sawmill side of Darlington Point. You say here that national parks manage it. Is it still a separate identity to the park itself?
Yes, it is. My understanding, a lot of those questions that were raised at the last meeting had been looked into by staff previously. So that is certainly outside my project brief regarding the Crown lands. And I think the other sites that were mentioned in the agenda, just bear with me, I'm flicking screens and I've lost that. Just 2 seconds. Yeah, similarly, the heritage issues regarding the willows and what have you, in discussions with the general manager late last week. Like I said, one thing we can do with the plans of management is, like I said, make those sites far more open for use and what have you. But as I said, the sawmill site is NPWS's responsibility at this stage.
Right, okay. Yeah, you have a good rapport with these people. We just need to try to move on that issue to try to work out how we manage that site. At the moment, it's a bit of an eyesore, and somehow we have to manage that site and use it for future going ahead for Darlington Point.
Yes, understood.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions? If not, would somebody like to move the recommendation, please? Move Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Curfew, and the recommendation reads that Murrumbidgee Council endorse a draft plan of management for Elliott Park to enable it to proceed to public exhibition. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? Carried. Thank you. We'll move to item 8 for notation. The Western Riverina Arts Annual General Meeting. There's plenty of information here. Councillor Bryce, would you like to speak to this, please? The committee minutes.
I'll take any questions. Unfortunately, I was not able to connect to these meetings, so I don't have any knowledge of anything that's not actually written down. Fortunately for Western Riverina Arts, they are financial, again, for this budget. That would be our main concern, I would assume. Those in the arts sector are struggling with COVID-19. We're very fortunate to have
together
as the director, and she's right on top of anything, trying to get artists and into the media as much as she can. But I'll take any questions.
While we're moving forward with the Western Riverina Arts, we might deal with item 8 and item 9 together. The annual general meeting and the general meeting. Any questions, please, from Councillor Bryce? Any questions to Councillor Bryce? No, the only comment I would like to make, Councillor Bryce, also is the amount of information we are now getting regarding the Western Riverina Arts, their financials, their proposals, and whatever is really reassuring. And I, like you, agree that I think the committee of management and the board of representation are doing a good job. So thank you very much. Do we need to move that?
You can if you wish.
Somebody like to move that these committee meetings, general meeting and annual general meeting, be accepted. Somebody like to move? Move Councillor Turfey, seconded Councillor Churchman. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item 10, please.
Vicky, still on?
Certainly am. Thank you. Just the monthly cash and investments report, councillors. 31st of March, I guess we weren't too far into our COVID possibilities, so it is there. I'll take any questions.
Any questions of Vicky, please? Councillor Churgwin.
Vicky, do you think that this whole COVID-19 is going to affect our investments going forward?
Well, interest rates are not brilliant anyway. They can't descend much lower than they currently are. So I anticipate, yes, there'll be a little more reduction in interest income. And again, of course, we are actually expending at a fairly rapid rate now on projects where we were holding the money. So yes, I think there'll be a small impact. It's hard to say over the long term. We don't know how long it's going to last. That's the problem, I guess.
Any further questions of Vicky? If not, I'd like somebody to move, please. Recommendation. Move Councillor Black, seconded Councillor Gilbert, that the council note that the monthly cash and investment report containing the bank balances and schedule of investments as at the 31st of March 2020. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against, carried. Thank you. Julie, I just might ask you to go back to item number 2 because I don't know that we actually read the recommendation, and can we go back to item 2, please?
My report.
That was item 2. It was regarding formally acknowledging the raw water recommendations. So would somebody like, did we?
Moved and seconded, yeah.
We did. Okay. Okay, I'll read the recommendation just for the transcript. That the raw water restrictions for Jerilderie Township be as detailed below. Residential properties, watering time 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. daily. Use of automated systems or hoses with timers. Timers cannot be set to exceed 120 minutes or handheld hoses only. And commercial/council properties watering times for lawn or garden 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. daily. Use of automated systems only. And for lawn or garden 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. daily. Handheld hoses with timers. Timers cannot be set to exceed 120 minutes only. Okay, so do we need to remove and second?
It was carried back then.
It was carried back then, so we have that on record. We just needed to clearly articulate what the recommendation was. Thank you. We'll move to item 11, please.
Vicky.
Just councils for your information, the rates and charges, or rates and annual charges collection report. That was based at 31st of March. There is still one instalment process to go through, so you may or may not be aware that those rate instalment notices have just been posted in the last few days. So we will see how we go.
Okay, any questions of Vicky regarding this item number 11 report? If not, somebody like to move the recommendation, please. Moved Councillor Black, seconded Councillor Churgwin. The recommendation reads that the contents of the rates and annual charges collection report at the 31st of March 2020 be noted. Those in favour, please say aye. Don't say aye, put your hand up, please. Just seeing if you're paying attention. Put your hand up. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item 12, please.
Vicky.
Councillors, just a quarterly look at our loan borrowings. So as at the 31st of March, loan borrowings are sitting at $150,719. $100,001 of that is actually an internal loan from the sewer fund to the general fund. You will note that one of those loans from the previous report, one of those loans has actually cleared, so we only have the 2 left at the present time.
Okay. Any questions of Vicky, please, regarding the loan borrowings? If not, somebody like to move, please. Move Councillor Bryce, seconded Councillor Curfew, and the recommendation reads that the information contained in the loan borrowings report be noted. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against, carried. Thank you. Item 13, please.
Vicky?
Councillors, this is again at a point in time at the 31st of March, the information regarding the Stronger Communities Fund. So that's the original, what was originally the merger money, we'll call it, the 10 million plus round 2, which was a further 4 odd million. Those projects are keeping going, I guess. 15 projects have been completed within the major projects fund. As noted before, the Colliambley Sports Centre project, which are multiple works. They are out for tender at the current time. And there have been at least 2 people show an interest and have presented to the site to prior to commencing work on their tender process. So that's good. The Yamahal toilets and kitchen upgrade is progressing. The swimming pool is progressing. Waddy, the 2 projects there in rounds 1 and round 2. So the cultural gardens, I won't say that that's fully complete. There's still some plantings and so forth to happen there, but the cultural centre is going forward also, as is the Darlington Point Lions Park. They are the significant ones, I guess, from within that Stronger Communities Fund. I guess I'll take any questions. There are a lot of projects in there, so just make progress.
Any questions for Vicky, please? Vicky, I've got a question. Can you give us a progress status report on the change rooms at Darlington Point at the sports ground? Where's that project up to?
That is substantially complete. My last discussions with Ben were that I think they were up to the internals, just the partitioning walls. It should be complete within a few weeks. So ready.
It would be really useful to councillors if at our council meetings we could have visuals of completed projects, just so that, you know, when people say to us, well, what's finished or what's happening or where are we up to or whatever, is there an ability to bring that to us in picture stories, like just so that we've got a bit of an idea about what's going on?
And Councillor McRae, yes, I've asked Ben when he goes to run round to start taking some photos of those things, and I was just going to send them off through email to councillors once we've got it, and any changes and things like that, rather than waiting for the council meeting, if that's okay with everybody.
Well, that would be really helpful. Thank you very much. Any further questions of Vicky, please? I have
a question for councillors. Should we start delivering this Stronger Country Community Funds with the completed projects deleted? Because you've seen the completed projects there probably for the past 3 or 4 times. We just roll it up to the ones that we've still got active.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, it would be great. Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be down to 1 page then.
That'd be very helpful. Thank you very much. Councillor Smith?
Given that, like the Darlington Point entrance signs, that project I understand is completed, but it says they haven't received the accounts as yet. Is this true, Vicky?
In looking at that project, there is also money from the Stronger Country Communities funds. So where it runs over in one fund and comes back to the other, this is the difficulty we have when we've got lots of projects. Sometimes it's, off the top of my head, it's a bit hard for me to determine, I guess, which money's going into which project. So at the time of writing the report, I certainly didn't have the last of the invoices from the community. We have received that since the writing of this report. So the next look will be something more appropriate. But the significant amount of those funds is actually coming from a different project at this stage.
Okay. And sorry, and now I'm probably digressing. The one immediately above, which is the town information boards and tourism maps, and there was a brochures to be printed as well. Some of that has been expended and the components of that project completed. The information doesn't reflect that it's actually occurred, and there is still a component of it to be expended. Historically,
again,
they were lumped together, weren't they?
Again, significant amount of that was under that Go and a Walking Track money, which has come out of the Stronger Country Communities project. So a lot of that funding has been met out of, like, from a different program. So whilst I'm reporting on the Stronger Communities Fund in this report, it doesn't give you a clear indication of the projects overall, unfortunately, because the money's actually been spent out of other funding areas.
Just through you, Madam Mayor, then shouldn't we actually know what areas the funding is coming out of?
I have said often in the last 12 to 18 months, I'm thoroughly confused, and I find it very, very difficult to speak to how this funding is rolled out. And the original 55 projects through the Stronger Community Funds was easy to speak to before it became bundled and absolutely unrecognisable to speak to. And it's very difficult because I'm not questioning the governance around it. I'm just saying it's impossible for us as mere lay people to speak to. And I think as we move forward, if we take out all these expended projects and we just get left with what's still to be dealt with, it would be helpful if we knew where these contributing funds were coming from and how we mean to go forward into the future. I think that's, it's not that we don't have confidence that it is being spent appropriately, it's just that we have got no clue as to how to speak to it.
Yes.
Councillors, I will tell you that it's not quite as easy as it sounds to keep a handle on it either, but I hope we're doing that. I will endeavour in the future. It is a requirement for me to provide a specific report on this program. Under those requirements for the Stronger Community Funds, I am required to report on this fund alone each quarter, and then also I then report to the department every 6 months, specifically on these funds. So I will endeavour in the future to put a report together which shows all of the funding and how we're sitting. It may be that in some cases we've actually doubled up. We've got money in this fund, but we've all since received money in that Stronger Country Communities Fund, and that will play out as each project is completed. Hopefully we've kept that up to date, but yes, I will endeavour to put something together that gives you a whole perspective, just as an information report as well. But this is, I am required to present this report individually for those projects.
We actually do understand that bit, Vicky. It's after that bit we get confused. Okay, so If we move forward, having dealt with this specific amount of money, we hopefully will have less to peruse and try and work our way through. And if we just work on a reporting method that allows us to see that there may be more than one funding stream, that would be helpful. Okay, any further questions of Vicky, please? If not, would somebody like to move the recommendation, please? Move Councillor Bryce, seconded Councillor Brown, that the information contained in the Stronger Communities Fund March 2020 report be noted. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 14, please. The new Council Implementation Fund. Vicky.
Again, councillors, this is the portion of the merger money with the additional funding totalling 6.225 million there. Look, I think that's fairly straightforward. Certainly we've got some more information technology money to spend. Integrated risk management is being undertaken. It has started. And the LEP started. There's lots of work to do there. Telephone tower at Bundoora, I can't tell you where that's at, but we're working our way.
Until struck
35 k's up the road.
Yeah.
Just for the councillors' information, the last information that John and I received was that the telephone tower 35 k's out the road was meant to be, that issue was meant to be addressed in July. But given what we're living through at the moment, what year in July that will happen is just a little bit in the lap of the gods. But that was the latest information we had. We will continue to push for that. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I was going to ask that specific question. We've got money there and people are waiting to have the opportunity to use those communications. Is that July last year or this year?
No, July this year. It was meant to be prior to the last fire season, but every time you get close to somebody who might give you an honest and transparent answer, they say, well, let's have this gate. Nobody knows how many gates there are to work through. However, the latest information we received, which was communicated to the General Manager, was that it would hopefully be in July, August this year, prior to the next fire season. So all we can do is live in hope, but given the situation we're all living and trying to work through at the moment, that will be a huge bonus if that actually happens on time. Let's hope so.
They've got a legitimate excuse, maybe.
We are hopeful, Councillor Brown. Any further comment?
No.
Councillor Churgwin.
Given in some areas we've sort of gone over budget and some areas are yet to be spent, are we likely to go over budget on this, or will still come in under budget or at budget?
Look, I think we may come in under. We've actually put a hold on our further IT capabilities. We just don't have the council resources at the present time, certainly in the next 18 months, to be able to respond to those. So it may be that the IT will come under, and obviously the staffing component's gone over, but no, I think we'll come in pretty close.
Thank you.
The glaring blowout here is the provision for adjustment to the new salary system. Well, you know, that's not just an overspend, that's a blowout. So, you know, that hopefully, we'll have some resolution. That would be good if we have that sort of expenditure. You would hope that it will have some resolution. Any further comment? Sorry,
Councillor,
Nikki?
if I will note on that one, there was such an extended time lag between making that work, that was more than we had anticipated, taking an extra 12 or 18 months in some case, which had we done it when we thought we would get those things done, those increases would have been within the normal operating expenses, not in one lump sum that's showing here. It would have been absorbed into the normal wages costs of all our council works. So the fact that we had to pay it as a back pay, so to speak, is why it sits within this report, because it was so long being formalised, I guess.
I guess the point that concerns council is it's almost 3 times the amount that was allocated, and that is significantly worrying, really.
And you were 3 years behind from when it should have been done.
Yeah. So that is, I take on board the time lag that it took, but that's a serious impost on our revenue. Councillor Smith.
I was just going to pass comment that we've had a review of the salaries restructure now 2 or 3 times, and have gone back to pay gap payments as such 2 or 3 times now, and I don't know that we're any closer to actually having our pay structure stable, formalised. It's not completely in place as yet.
It is fully harmonised. It's complete. It was completed in December, whatever year that was, 2018. Everybody was harmonised. Everybody was matched like for like back in 2018.
So this amount that's sitting here now is a reflection of that back pay that we paid in 2018. Not any of the additional monies that we've paid since then, as we've had PDs and that come forward.
As we've had PDs come forward, no.
Oh, well.
No.
Okay, any further questions of Vicky, please? Vicky, is it fair to assume that we are close to being able to not have to report on the implementation fund anymore, given that we're 4 years into the merger?
Well, I guess it's going to take until we've finalised these projects that requirement is there. So unless they say we haven't done it now and we'll take the funds back, and I don't think we want to see that happen, but certainly the LEPs are a long process. We now have a work health and safety officer that's working through the risk management systems, or started to work through those risk management systems. So it's still, yes, I understand we're 4 years down the track, but we're still continuing with that program. So until I've expended the funds and we've finished the items that we've said we're going to attend to under that grant funding, this needs to come up.
Is there a time frame on our compliance, on our requirement to complete these things?
Not that I'm aware of. What we had before was only the wording that it must be committed by December 2019. So I think the department understands how difficult it has been to continue the works, and the current pandemic, of course, has only thrown further spanners into the works. So I don't think they're going to come back and tell us you're done and give us the money back. I don't think that's on the cards. But we certainly haven't been in a position to sit down and have a discussion round table where that's at.
Okay, well, given the conversation we've just had, which alluded to the LEPs being attended to and the risk management systems being attended to and whatever, should we be concerned that the IT component of it is on hold because we don't have the capability to attend to that. So how do we envisage into the very near future we will attend to the IT capability that we seem to lack in the organisation?
Look, it does need time. You can't just come and put the program in. It takes a lot of background work and knowledge and a lot of testing, and then testing that the integrations happen. So it does take a lot of staff time to be able to do that. And the complexities of the ones that are still to come, the asset management system and the customer request system, they are hugely complex and need a lot of IT knowledge. So we have to bring that IT knowledge in. So into the future, I think it will become probably a council funded project with significant budgeting requirements if that's still the way we need to go. Certainly what we have now is basic and covers our needs in terms of the financial aspect. So we'll just take one at a time, and instead of trying to do everything at once, which we've basically tried to do for the last 18 months, 2 years, it's a big project to get that system up and running and operating with the number of staff we have. So in the future, I think it'll be more consultancy work.
So I don't have a problem with taking things one at a time, but to be put on hold is a different approach. So when do you envisage that we will be not on hold and we can do one at a time?
We don't intend to look at this for another 18 months.
So if there's an 18-month lag in our IT capacity, how is that going to impact on how we go about business?
Well, we're doing the basics now. I'll use our asset management systems. We're doing using manually. It's not stopping the system from working. The significant ones we put it in there is a huge amount of work to link all the different what are called modules of the financial system and the reporting systems and the operating systems. So we will continue as we are and meeting our deadlines. The discussions with the auditors is the amount of time that these programs take to implement and set up and integrate with the number of staff. The problems that we've had over the last couple of years is to put this on hold for at least 18 months so that we can get ourselves together and get things operating properly, get things done on time, and then let's go out and attempt that once we're back together and know how we're operating with the current system. The learning curve on a new system is 2 to 3 years. We're still coming to terms with the system, or some of us are still coming to terms with the system as it is. So, things don't happen at the touch of a button. We've got to know how to make things work. So get that in place, get some things happening on time, and then we'll look at the next stage of implementation, which will again take time out of our day-to-day works. Hopefully by then we'll be resourced with at least one additional staff member, but it may be more consultants to assist.
Any further questions of Vicky, please? If not, somebody like to move the recommendation, please. Move Councillor Black, seconded Councillor Smith, that the recommendation reads that the contents of the new Council Implementation Fund report be noted. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against, carried. Thank you. Item 15, please.
Thank you, Councillor McRae. Sue has updated the delivery program for your, I was going to say entertainment, but that's not exactly the right word, for comment from Council. So if there's anything specific please advise, because it may not have been Sue, it might be somebody else that actually gave the detail to this, as every manager inputs the status and comments. Sue just compiles it and sends it through. So,
okay, any comment, councillors? Councillor Wells.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to be excused from the remainder of the meeting if that's possible, please. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Wells. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Any further comment, please? Councillor Churgwin.
Just to comment on a couple of things that are not applicable. Do we really need to have them in the delivery program if they're impractical, or it's not part of our service delivery?
So at this point in time, this is the documents that were developed 5 years ago. Moving forward towards the end of this year, we'll be developing the new and going forward with new projects. Hopefully, at that time, we will devise outcomes that are applicable to us. But as it is at the moment, they'll just sit in here. We won't be able to rip them out or rip them off or anything else like that.
Councillor Smith.
Now, if we've got any changes to make, if we note them down in the document as we've got it, and then we do the new one, then we can incorporate any changes. Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
Councillor Smith.
Noted strategy 4.3.4 that we actually have no branding strategy for Murrumbidgee, and we have not moved forward or pressed forward with that branding, which I see as being, if we are to be on a front foot as we come out of this isolation period now, we have a great opportunity to make ourselves attractive for those that are looking for an alternative destination for trips and holidays and what have you. I just would like to think that, you know, we are proactive and going to be there to take advantage of whatever comes towards us or is made available for us through tourism.
And Councillor Smith, thank you for that, and for sending that through. When I asked what are some of the things that we can do or what we can do to get ready to be shovel ready, and this is one of the things that both Anne and Kelly are working on is, and I stress it is a social media campaign that we're putting together to be ready for when COVID breaks, whatever it is. It is, I stress it is social media. It's not any other form or anything else like that because of costs. We can get on fairly inexpensively into social media. So that's what they are working on based on what you put forward as well, Councillor Smith.
As long as we are seen to be having a go, I think, and if opportunity arrives, well, then we've utilised the best resources that we've had in front of us that we can. So that's a positive. Thank you.
Any further comment, please, regarding this delivery program? If not, somebody like to move, please. Moved Councillor Churgwin, seconded Councillor Bryce. The recommendation reads that the information contained in the delivery program review report to the 31st of December 2019 be noted. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item 16, please.
Councillor McRae, item 16 to item 22 are the monthly reports from the managers that get put through. If there was any specific questions on the managers' reports, we'll take them as opposed to item 23 and 24 and 25, which are the other reports that we have particular questions on. I received some some questions from councillors in relation to these things and got answers back, hopefully to everybody. But if anybody's got any questions of any of the managers from any of those reports, maybe we can lump them together moving forward.
I'm assuming everybody has had a good read of this. Are there any questions from item 16 through to 22 that you would like to raise, please? I assume, John, you are going to speak to them if there's any issues.
And if not, I'll take them and get an email back out once I get an answer.
Okay. Councillors in your court. Councillor Smith.
In item 17, the manager planning and environment, there is, I think, a reference with regards to consultant engagement for the survey that is being undertaken for our land use and development. I tried to use that survey today and I found it a very difficult tool. The other thing was that it's only going to be available if you go online, you read the website. If you don't want to do the survey digitally, then they will post you a paper copy, but you still have to engage digitally to be aware of that alternative. How we are going to address that component of our population that is not engaging digitally and will not be aware that this survey is to be undertaken or can be undertaken.
Thank you. I can't remember. I can't remember the media release that was sent out today. I can't remember whether it, or yesterday, whether it acknowledged the post or whether we directed everybody to online.
Well, you can receive a paper copy.
Yeah.
But the point Councillor Smith is making is that to receive the paper copy, you have to have been on the website to be aware of that information.
Yep.
Yep. That's it.
Yep. Okay. You will address that, John? Yes. Any further questions? Councillor Curfew.
One question. I've been looking through the business paper. The gravel crushing exercise at the Darlington Point tip to repair the Waddy Roadhouse school bus zone. What's happening with that?
I have to take that on notice too. Sorry.
That's fine.
Okay. Councillor Curfew, the General Manager will get back to you with that information. Councillor Black.
Yes, thank you very much. In the item 17, we've got Coleambry Lake with Peter Ware. We've been stuck with this for the last 10 years that I know of. It hasn't moved very far. Where's the water going to come from? Is there substantial interest by the people who are proposing the lake to stump up some money to buy the water for the lake? Or are we just wasting the planning and environment person's time?
Am I to take it from you, Councillor Black, you would like clarification, current clarification as to where the water is going to be sourced?
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
And my understanding, and I stand to be corrected, but in the talks I have had, there was talk that the earthworks were all going to be voluntary also, with voluntary equipment and voluntary manpower developing the lake itself. Is that correct?
Well, that was 10 years ago. What is the current situation of where the people of the lake are? There's not one person in Coleambry has approached me about the lake. So I'm just wondering whether Christine or Pat know any more about the lake than I do. But the main driver of the lake has left town. And I doubt with the people I know whether the interest of the lake's still there. So are we wasting time pursuing it with staff time?
Councillor Brown, Councillor Curfew, do you have any comment regarding this?
That's a Churdwin.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Churdwin. I do mean you, sorry. You got anything to say, Rob? Would you like to add anything to it?
I think it would, Kelly really needs to meet with the Lake Committee to see where they're up to. From what I can tell, the interest is still there. But yeah, I think Kelly's going talking to Peter Weir, but she needs to also talk to the Lake Committee to see where they're at with it.
So,
Well, maybe the
so
Lake Committee should be telling us.
Councillor Churgwin, who is the driver of the Lake Committee?
On the Lake Committee, you've got Scott Hogan, Trent Gardner, Ian Payne, Lynn Stuckings, Jay Pound. Jason Sharon phones in for the meetings as far as I know, and there's a couple of others that I can't remember off the top of my head.
So are you giving us the understanding that the level of commitment is still as it was in its originality, and the commitments for the water and the earthworks and the manpower are still as they were with the original committee?
As far as I'm aware, that is so. The only thing different to where it was 10 years ago, they had the money to buy the water, but given the way water's gone in that intervening time, I'm not sure what their plans are for the acquirement of the water.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I think most of the speculation now, we need to bring everyone up to date, and I would suggest that if Kelly went and met with those two committees and just reported back to us, and if we've got any input, then we can make our comments then. If they want to drive it, let them drive it. I don't think it's anything to do with us, is it?
So, Councillor Brown, you're telling me there are two committees. What are the two committees?
Oh, you had the original drive. Sorry, the committee that Christine just announced.
The Lake Committee.
It's the Lake Committee.
Yeah. So if Kelly talks to them and they can bring her up to date, and Peter Ware, whether he knows anything, the environmental department, they've said there's weeping myall or boree on the site, and that's an endangered species. So, you've hit the brick wall before you start, but let them find that out, bring it back to us. If we have a commitment, or do we make a commitment, or we just carry on with the business we're meant to be operating.
Okay, Councillor Curfew.
I believe this process is holding up the potential for Collian to look at new subdivisions for residential. I've been told there's no residential land left in Colliamley. Is that true?
Pretty close.
Yeah, so if we're clouded by this, there's other things the council have to get on and establish to take the community forward. I'd hate to think that this stops the necessary growth of the community.
Well, I think the very pertinent point is, Councillor Curfew, that one should not be dependent on the other. If there is an identified need for residential land, then yes, council should move ahead with identifying the land and moving forward with that. But there are some significant ifs, buts and maybes attached to the development of the lake, if what we're hearing today is the current status of that project. So I think they're two different requirements and needs. And I think we've already identified that residential land in Colliamley is a requirement and a priority, but it's not intimately linked or defined by the creation of the lake project.
Just to say a couple of words. Number one, as part of the shovel-ready projects, we've identified the residential subdivision at Colliamley, and we're moving through some identifications of that and some proposals. So hopefully you'll see some of those things come forth in the next month or two. In relation to Kelly and the lake, it was the Lake Committee that approached Kelly. Kelly agreed to assist them through where they saw the roadblocks being the environmental portion of it. Full stop. So she is assisting, she is talking to people that she knows in the state government environmentally to find out what the roadblocks are in the federal government and working through those things. She's not the champion of the lake, she's not the holder of the water, she's not the driver of the bulldozers. She's just trying to help them because that's where Where it seems to be stopped right now is the environmental section of it.
Yep.
Being the planning of environment and knowing the context, she put her hand up to assist in relation to that. If we get through those parts of it, then be handed back to the committee and the deep pockets with the short arms can come out and things can be done.
I think what has been made very clear, though, as Councillor Brown articulated, that if this project is to move forward, it has to be driven by the community. It is not to be driven by council. Council can support it, but it is not council's domain to drive it, to provide the water, to enable the earthworks, to do all that sort of stuff. There needs to be an active, resourced committee that drives this project. So I think we need to make that very clear. We will support the project and we will work with them, but we won't be the key stakeholder. The community has to drive it, as opposed to the residential development, which Councillor Curfew alluded to. Council will and already is actively involved in developing residential ability in Colliambly. Are there any further questions regarding that item number 17? If not, any other questions pertain to the manager's reports? Councillor Bryce. Councillor Bryce.
Yes. Thank you. Just item 21. I firstly want to say what an excellent product we received with the road upgrade and BP. It's probably the best work I've seen through town, and I would like to know when is the next section, which is between, I think, Brown Street and Smith Street, if there's a timeline for that to be undertaken.
Can you take that on notice, please, John, and get back to Councillor Bryce? That'd be really good. There was in the community and corporate report and in John's report also, or maybe John's general manager's report, the interaction and intervention with the Murrumbidgee Local Health District regarding our aged care infrastructure, and we had in place 2 meetings which have been COVIDed, yeah, knocked on the head. So we are continuing to operate in that space. The local members are aware of our need, want and desire to move forward with that, but unfortunately nothing will happen in that regard until we've moved through to the other side of this COVID-19 issue.
Councillor Smith.
Councillor Smith.
With regards to your comment, Madam Mayor, there is also in item 18 comment about preparation of the deed of variation for the home support program, and I was just wanting a bit more information on what the data impact of that was, what the financial impact, what the implications were of it.
Well, I would imagine, Councillor Smith, that given the environment we're operating in, the deed of variation allows continuance of that service to be allowed to happen. That's what I would be thinking. If you require us to get any further detail around that, I'll leave that with John and he can get back to you about that also.
Just clarification, Madam Mayor, if you wouldn't mind, thank you.
No problem. Any further questions? If not, I will read the recommendations from items 17 through to 21. 16 to 21. 16 to 21.
Just one that they just be noted.
Okay, and the recommendation will be that items 16 through to 21 will be noted for information. Would somebody like to move? Move Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Curfew. Those in favour, please raise your hands. For, against. Okay, I declare that carried. We will move to item 22, please.
23.
23, please.
Yes, it's just the standard report of the DA's approved under delegation. Moving forward, any questions?
Any questions of John? If not, somebody will move a recommendation which states the information contained in the development applications approved under delegation report March 2020 be noted. Somebody move, please. Councillor Gilbert, seconded Councillor Curfew. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item 24, please.
And this is biosecurity, sale yards, truck wash, stock control, for your information as well. Any questions I can seek clarification on?
Any questions regarding the biosecurity report?
Yes.
Scott? Yes,
I've
Councillor.
got it down calamity but over the last few weeks, and it has nothing to do with colliery irrigations with Murrumbidgee Council's land, but a biodiversity block run by colliery irrigation has a huge number of box thorns on it. And I wonder, are these people, do we write letters to people who have got major problems or not?
I'll speak to their manager and find out about that or get that done.
That's
but yes,
down,
we would
that's
normally
down on
intervene.
Miranda Road. The block, Christine.
Yeah,
Near the
as
TSA.
far as I'm aware, the government hasn't funded the biodiversity, haven't given colliery irrigation funds recently to run programs, but double check with that with the compliance manager.
Well, it's
Okay.
an
Any further-
eyesore in the community.
Any further questions, please? Councillor Brown?
Yeah, look, those two blocks were funded 7, 8, and 9 years ago. They've all been cleared. So, yeah, anyway, chase it up, but you've got to go back and knock them down as they come up again. And just with regard to this report, it says here that, the ovals were cleaned up, etc. Well, there's still issues in town. I'm not pointing the finger, but whoever writes these reports should go and check that what they're putting down is actually correct. Because, I see it and I get told by other people. So let's make these reports, please, John, if you could pass that on.
Yep.
Any further comment? If not, would somebody like to move, please? Councillor Black, seconded Councillor Churgwin. And the recommendation reads that the information contained in the biosecurity sale yards, truck wash and stock control report be noted. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? Carried. Thank you. We'll move to item number 25, works in progress.
Yep. There for your information, is there any questions I may be able to answer or take on notice and get back to you via email?
Okay, are there any questions for John, please, regarding this works in progress report? Councillor Curfew.
Construction, Bricks Roads reconstruction, 850 metres. That's been completed. It says in the report the works have been completed. It's been completed, is it?
I'll have to double check.
And we came in under budget.
Where it has.
And we came in under budget by $26,000. I think that's a good effort.
So are you confirming that it's been completed, Councillor Curfew, or are you asking for clarification?
I'm not being sarcastic or cynical. I'm just saying that yes, it's been completed. It's $26,000 under a budget, and it's a good job. If I wanted to put two boxes in, we may have to widen that road later down the track when we decide that it'll be part of the Young Street subdivision. But at the moment, the job's been done and it's been done within budget. So very good.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. Any further comments? No. Councillor Bryce.
Just wanted
Can't see your head.
Thank you for the drought funding. The new bins in Murrumbidgee Main Street have gone up, and look forward to the rest of the works being completed over the next month.
Thank you for that comment. Okay, any further comments, please? If not, would somebody like to move, please? Move Councillor Curfew, seconded Councillor Bryce. And the recommendation reads that the information contained in the Works in Progress report be noted. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? Can I do that again, please? Those in favour, please raise your hands all together. Okay, thank you. Those against? Carried, thank you. Okay, as there are no confidential items to be addressed this month, that sees the completion of our council meeting. I would like to thank all of you for working actively, responsibly and respectfully during the meeting. It has made it a lot easier. Hopefully we'll get the hang of this, in the next couple of meetings. I encourage you during this time that if there's anything you need to know or you're concerned about, please contact the General Manager or myself directly, and we are happy to work with you. Any further comment? Councillor Bryce.
Just wanted to know, Ruth, whether there is any indication how long these have to be performed this way.
Well, I think in my opening spiel, Faith, now that we're off recording. No.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Turn Facebook. Might disconnect everything. Yeah, turn Facebook off.